Johannesburg, South Africa. Also known as the City of Gold, it is a melting pot of culture, a place where people come from different parts of the world, either to work, do business, or to transit. Others even have resorted to stay here. This can easily be the busiest part of South Africa. And it has a business that is almost in every street, the business of liquor. From the big cities to the townships, the liquor business is big business in South Africa. These establishments can be found in many communities. Some are even in private houses. Welcome to Within Societies. Within Societies, we are just looking into various communities, their challenges, and maybe try to come up with some solutions into whatever we will be looking into that day. And today, we are looking into the scourge of alcoholism, but also we want to look at how it affects people's life and how it affects the economy of South Africa. So firstly, we'll be talking to Neo, who actually deals with people who are into alcoholism and how he actually navigate the whole challenge and how he deals with these people.
My name is Neo Moyedi, founder of Mahato Foundation. We help those who struggle with drug addiction and alcoholism. We've been registered and active since June 16th, 2021. Our motto is destigmatize, educate, recover. So we use those as our slogan, as our motto, because we realize that there's a big stigma when it comes to addiction. And when I speak about addiction, I also include alcoholism, because alcohol is a drug. Thank you very much for that. Okay, now we break the stigma because now a lot of people suffer in silence until comes a point where we now see Umuntu is now labeled as Unyaope, someone is labeled as Istagwa, but now we help to get out of that place where people are afraid to break the stigma. And then the education part. We pride ourselves in going to schools, doing our outreaches. We go to churches, we go to rehab centers, both government and private. We go to halfway houses, and we also host workshops where we educate society on what it is to be an addict. And when I say an addict, I include an alcoholic. As much as addiction, alcoholism is a progressive disease, because it is a disease as it was classified by the World Health Organization in the 1970s. Now, what happens is, because we realize that it is progressive and it takes the whole family along with it, a lot of the time we find that people reach out to us, having seen our posts on social media, having seen us being active in our communities and being active doing our workshops and our outreaches. Another way that people come to us is we actually approach people that we see are suffering as we just go about our daily lives. And as we do that, we get into a position where we are privileged to help people that are seeking the help that we have to provide. Okay. And another thing is, a lot of the time we find that people want to separate alcohol and drugs and treat them as two separate things. However, they are one thing, because if it alters your mind, if it alters your mood, it is a drug. Now, a lot of the time we find that because alcohol is a socially acceptable and legal drug, that people go to it as the go-to that is now acceptable. Now, the danger with alcohol is it starts off as something that we do casually, that we do as a recreation, as a way to celebrate, as a way to relax. But especially now, in fact, not even now, let's go back to when our grandfathers were still alive. A lot of the time we find that there were beer halls, there were taverns, Zikasi, Poto, Amashibin, and all of that. Now, what that does is it takes the person away from their daily responsibilities. And we find that it now becomes something that people are now dependent on. So we can't face life anymore. We can't handle family situations. We can't handle the pressure that life brings because why? Now we've got something that we can use as a crutch, the alcohol, the drugs. And now we can't even be sure that we are present. And now what happens when that happens, as soon as we sober up, we find that the problems that we were trying to run away from have now escalated and multiplied, and we now find ourselves in a deeper hole to get out of. The danger with alcohol is, yes, like I said before, it starts off as something that is recreational, but as time goes on, it becomes something that we're dependent on. And once we are drunk and we now start doing things that we do not remember the next day. And when we don't remember the next day, what do we blame it on? We don't take responsibility, we are no longer accountable, but we blame it on the alcohol. But here's the funny part. Alcohol doesn't come to me. I go to the alcohol. Alcohol doesn't take money out of my pocket. I take my money out of my pocket to pay for the alcohol. Same thing with the drugs. So we cannot afford to be living in a society where we are blaming our surroundings and everything else and deflecting and running away from the responsibility that ultimately it is me, it is my choice, it is my decision to go to the bottle store and purchase a bottle of whatever. I'm not going to mention it. And it doesn't matter if it's the most expensive or it's the oldest bottle of wine or cognac or whiskey, whatever, I don't know. But at the end of the day, the results are the same. And I'm not saying this to put everyone in the same bracket. There are people that do drink and can handle their drinks like ladies and gentlemen. And then you find people like me and countless others who cannot handle a drink and drink like a gentleman. I cannot drink successfully. And it's something I've come to accept. I cannot even touch anything that will alter my mind or my mood. We may look at something as simple as marijuana and saying, no, it's holy, it's not holy, but it's natural, it's the holy herb, it doesn't affect. For me, once I touch something that alters my mind, I can't stop. My body is allergic to it, meaning I have an allergic reaction. Once I touch, I can't stop. My mind obsesses over these things. If I was to drink today, going for 7 years of uninterrupted sobriety, if I was to drink today, I would now obsess over it for another 8 months, even if I did not go back to the bottle.
Voilà, berat lebih lagi kena sebab so tadi salah kedai so pembeli. So mana alcohol kita ni kira, kita ni lekali, ni kira so. I remember my first encounter with alcohol. I was about 9 years, and these older girls, I think they were 14. So it was nearly Christmas time, I think. So Kupula Barakile Lula spirit. So they came and then Ripatilekamo, so Ripatilekam. And then I remember the taste. And one alcohol masipala because of Nekibea Chele. The right there and there had fell into I went to put sack. Galonza, Chele, the Carvacutele Marao. I get national. Batang says that way so like it's a man. Carabacutele Marao, Balofreka happened too. So I think nearly cheap, I think nearly my 10 rand. But in Caesar, my savings can 10 rand. And I think Ilasha Pake play out because of her that I know to get over Namu, Gamont Nilisam. Get over Limaku, the way he was getting gone, can so late. So, I love alcohol. Now, I think Kaloma alcohol in a far tricks actually, like in a tab, like. I drank for conviviality or for fun, for lifetime. Like it was nice. I still remember I used to go to places. The Wuzu in the zoo. So and it was all centered in alcohol. So alcohol, with immediate effect. Tuesday. Because of with me it escalated. So it started being me going to places, meeting people, affording it to at some point I could afford. And then in terms of alcohol, you are an alcoholic when you don't have money. Because of when only alcoholic and you have money and you buy, and I'm regular, but we're not alcoholic in fetu, so no or in. So there's no, it's not easy for me when I get find out who I was an alcoholic that time when I had money, because everybody wanted alcohol for me because of Nigerek or what so nobody would actually tell me, but the only person that would actually tell me was my mother. And every time and because of that same pattern, same thing. Hey, hey, baba, use but reality is those were the things that really happened. So as much as ke blowile tšhelete, ke blowile mesebetsi, ke blowile the relationships, ke blowile because of not the only thing. I never loved anybody. I'm so I never cared alcohol. I never cared about anything. Alcohol, yeah. To the extent that I had fear. But I had fear alcohol fail. I had fear that my alcohol should never get finished. So I made sure that I get alcohol. I made sure I get going back. Or get sure so I want to and then escalate. So I think how and so and then you're saying you don't want anybody to know about it or you regret. I think it's already process. You just check your, am I real now an alcoholic, or have I crossed that line? Because of so now I'm saying yo, what regret or regret or re tla be sentse re plomme dipolekeng tsele ga ba tle go batho ba bone go no plomme kae. So ke tsona ntho tse tsa re le yona ke like nna nkare ga ke dutse le batho ke ga o so qala o ba le ntho tseo check qala so o kena ndao o thola batho o tjho yes moshimane lo mobe or yena lo mobe na never tshwara ntho so ha o tswa so okay, Miss Face of Africa or Mr. Face of Africa bona ke jwala bo
madam bisola ka ke tshapelo ke tswaletse mlapo go family house wabo ke tswaletse family house ya ko mlapo, which is my father's side of the family. So yeah, I was born in 1996. In Komlapo, and the family al Tamaraka. And the Modi, or they were together. So, he was charity in a sport, about charity in a sport, and it was chaotic. It was chaotic, charity. It was warm. There was warm because of but the community would meet go charity. So yeah, it was very chaotic. I remember when you were children, and each and every time me and my cousins would open the door and they share and you would see people drinking, and you would see people happy, and I remember each and every time they would call us out, it was time for us to pack the bottles of the beer, and they would send us to the bank creating, and me and my cousins would go out and we would mix the beer and we would drink that. That was my first taste of alcohol.
What age were you?
I think I was about 9 or 10. Yeah, I think I was about 9 or 10 years. So that was my first taste of alcohol. But I wasn't sure if I liked it because of yeah, beer was very sour, very sweet, and it had a lot of acid. So at first I didn't like it, but I liked the effect that it produced. I could see people were having fun, and I could see people were fighting at the very same time. So I had mixed emotions about alcohol.
Ke na le HIV, oh shame, oh cancer, oh, but then I come, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, alcohol batla willpower. Alcohol in bon. Ke na na matao kaofela. Sam Lin. Nobody wished to read. Ekabalta. Wabo. Unso no ba bona batho ba, but you never wished. So we are spotong or lo thola 2. Unga 50 rand ya chunyana. But you end up unule chunyana o seba o khapile solo la ta tšhelete ne banketse yona also ichumetse cash send hape mo wena o no ipatela yona, but you send hape that cash, you end up unule everything le tšhelete ya go reka pensi bon how ka ipotsa go haebe this it's not a disease wa bona o na le willpower e teng ya go motho a nwe 100,000 rand o shote ka pensi ya 50 rand. Tomorrow you wake up of 50,000, you don't even know. That's the thing, you don't even know the 1,000 rand because I believe Rona Mutukana will about 1,000 rand. So which means you were buying for people, you were or could choose it, but you don't know. But what's 1,000 rand that is a one ton. So alcohol is one drug is so much easy to access it. It's so easy to be accessible, and then it destroys everything. And with alcohol, it destroys for now. Like by the time you check alcohol, it has destroyed so many things that you love. Yeah, destroy. So can I look over? Chola re dutse rona matawa re dutse le re ai no chomi dan le bonyope re no ha wa sheba marapi ka na le nyope rapi ka wa bana ntšhela because of really to ringa di drugs tswana. Alcohol is a drug ska le balantso ringa di down. So na le nyope happy ka ra etsa so le na tse ke tshwara students ke tsa so ke a ke sa kgona he mo bona
it's like if high school. I think I was in grade standard 6. Yeah, standard 6. Standard 6. I was 14 years. Yeah, standard 6. I was 14 years old. Wow. I was 14 years old. I
Naga 4 o'clock. Nakida pela ka 4, but I ended up ka 4. I keep Papa Makela. I must give my opinion. So I never could know about ka begin the kinoti. But it was just from Boma for next alone. As much as Negeza into the Nikidiazaki, but now I would start first like alcohol. And logically, little children are okay, fine. And then after that, but believe me or not, because of once I pick up, I cannot stop. That's why they say it's a disease centered in the mind. My mind says kilokalaka 2 and 2 my body says bring more. So if we're now and then body how you know I'm enough, bring more.
I remember when it was play time, I hanged out with them. And there was smoking. And I remember I was smoking too, So the click was easy because of we fell in love with each other because of we smoked one thing. And I remember that's where the trouble started. I started biting punching classes, I started, I started chasing after a woman, because of I wanted a sense of belonging. I wanted the sense of belonging because of I wasn't enough with who I am. The fact that I was bullied from primary school, the fact that I have these people I know they're gonna guide me. I know and I belong. I felt the sense of belonging, and I could not differentiate between the right of the wrong. Whatever they did, I did. All for the sense of belonging. And it went on to alcohol. It went on to alcohol. I remember there were times when you would bunk school Fridays and buy alcohol, You bunk school and buy alcohol, you would jump school, and there was a point when we would go to a tavern and you stand outside and look for somebody who can give money. And I don't know how, but you always found that one person, and that one person was that alcoholic that I told myself I wouldn't be like this person. No matter what happens, I wouldn't. So it came to a point to move on, so whenever I was getting so all you have to do was and they knew, right, even whenever they used to serve. So that's when I arrived now. Now I could buy alcohol on my own. I was like, yeah, this is it. And I didn't know I was in a progressive disease. A progressive disease. It doesn't get any better, it gets worse. And I remember later on, my grade 10, I was at the point where now I wasn't attending as much as I wanted to, I was at the point where I was drinking as much as I didn't want to, I was at the point where I was smoking as much as I didn't want to, and I couldn't understand that I had a disease of addiction, once I pick up, I cannot stop. And it went on until it came to a point where I was a menace at school, and me and my crew, we were expelled from school, we were expelled, and I remember that at grade 10 I failed, and they had to ship me to another school, that disappointment in my mom's face because she couldn't understand how I could fail. Because when I fit at school, I fit in room, like I act a certain way, I act disciplined, I make like I'm studying, even though I know deep inside that there's nothing that I'm doing. Then I went into
la alcoholic. I can say it's getting what let's jwala na ka feel lockdown ke ne ke bona bojwala bo khut hona le brand tse ding I think even ne ke na le ntshele ya ne ke believe hai jwala ba shapa covid shapa jwala because of now I was all over the show next time ke mask ne ke nwa jwala hona le majwala a le tshode ba ngotse B ke brandy W ke whiskey and then G I can't even join in my nature samo uthole ke nwa nthutseo so but ke mo ate I'm actually spiritually bankrupt like I thought Mudima was some back like now this was the end of me to a point of after lockdown, was also sometimes nikilla, like everything. I know Bromani Nandao, plus any killing trading down. Nigil Ocean show, I can have more like so Nigel feet, la fellow down, so people like me a lot. But I came to a point where Nixikile muchumo nikile mudi o sikile moyano wa strata sinini sike snap ha ay sinini wo sinini sikil yalla nal majwala tafule ditlesi ke majwala na yalla yi na sa batla jwala nna nka change na e modimo ka mpa chance until one day I just felt again rehab on my own. We were never close anyway. I tried to call this other lady go church, rehab till I think maybe the husband refused or something. And then I went on my own. And
I had friends, and my friends were now distant now because now Mama Yuzima was becoming the epicenter of my life. And I remember 2015, I went home and we sat down with my parents, and my parents, but we are here. But yeah, more because of the wrong reasons, I want their trust back, and I agreed, and they booked me into. My mom always does this. Well, a love of my mother. It's unconditional, I could break her, I could steal from her, I could disrespect her, but the love is there, and I'm grateful for that. Because of Azama fell up, and I remember 2015 they booked me into a rehab center for watching house over and back. And I went there with all the wrong reasons, I didn't want to change, I still enjoyed my drugs, but I wanted successfully without losing things, without damaging my relationships, without selling my things, without stealing for other people. I wanted the secret remedy, and I thought I could find it in rehab. So I figured out rehab. They told me about this program, and it will help me stay stopped and whatnot. And each and every Saturday, my parents would come and visit me just to check how I am, and I would put on a facade, thinking like I'm okay, but deep down I knew I had a reservation, and I come out. I won't use heroin, I would just drink alcohol, get to push up on the side, I wouldn't get square, I had all of this idea, And when I came out of the institution, they told me about this disease, that it's progressive, and now I'm not like other people. Once I pick up, I cannot stop, and now I have a threefold disease, which is mentally I'm obsessed, then physically, once I start, I cannot stop, my body wants more, then spiritually, I'm background, I have no communication with people, I have no communication with God, and I have no communication with myself. Most importantly, with myself, I have no communication, but
because of, now my rehab, I never had, but the way much rehab, and then I had, it wasn't even private, it was a government rehab, but when treated Shapuk, and then I had a program, I was introduced to this program, Kilko Rehab. And I told myself, Kilko Rehab, I will never, but never ever, but I asked God, or accept rehab. I don't want to leave my son, because of, I think I have one thing, it's my son. And then I remember I told myself, and then I had to understand, the nature of my disease. Or as an alcoholic, it's all centered in the mind, and my mind would just ask for two. I would drink two. When it comes here, it digests everything. More the living na alcohol ha tlamele ke stope se di le mo living live tlamele jotse brain ya ka re ela I had too much. Now it can't. Now my body just wants more, and I will keep on. Alcohol, my body just wants more. Hence, it will be visible for now. Or I am drunk because of my body just wants more, and if I'm visible, and then if it's people will see or I'm drunk, or I will just pass out more, or Kishapiki play out. I can tell how many times Kishapiki play out, Kishapiki play out. And it's humiliating and it's degrading, and especially for women. And there's no substitute, there's God. You put God as your substitution because of, alcohol gave me what I thought, on our black. I mean, black. Meaning, Murimu fa black. So once into fa black, which means, Mudim, ke black ya mudim, ke oil. So, God, ke substitute the alcohol ka God. God is giving me what I cannot do for myself. So paisisa, o tlo ithola le ujiwa ke batho ba sa batleng ba o je. O tlo thola o le di-plekeng tse o sa di batleng. O tlo thola o na le shame and guilt. And they sugarcoat it because of I know of people ba leng hore ba nyetse, ba dula le batho, but ba na le di-affair, and the only time ba lwetsa ntho tse rong ke a sa nwele ba le di-plakeng ba nyonyoba. O tlo thola hoseng o batla ho tswa motho o katele wa bona a sa sheba ha ona motho e tswa ka pele. O tlo ithola ko dinthong tse jwang. That's the honest truth about alcohol. Especially go basading. O tlo ithola o jiwa ke batho ba sa batleng hore ba o je. Eo o tla ithola ka yona.
Up until 2022, I went mentally insane, due to like psychosis. I was smoking heavily. I wasn't sleeping as much as I needed to, So all of these things I was hoping for, drug day to drug day, I started selling my clothes all over again, I started stealing from other people's washing too. So hey, I had to. There was a time where I get hooked at charity, and my mom already planned it. She planned everything. He told me some police station, And I remember when I came back, she told me, I must see you quick, but she knew I didn't want to pass. And I didn't want to pass, because bathing would waste my time. I needed to use, And I remember my mom once said to me that, and I was so excited, and she took me to a police station, She took me to the police station, That's the extent of the damage I did to her. She had lost trust in me. So I did a police station I feel the police station they helped me, but I think it was planned, it was pre-planned. I could not understand what was happening because it was to get the police station, after a few minutes, there's an ambulance, the ambulance, they send me to Pehimlangi, and when I get Pehimlangi, I couldn't understand what was happening, and then they gave me this uniform I was supposed to wear, and I remember and they injected me with, I think it was a morphine or something for I think 2 days. And then when I woke up on Monday, I could hear voices, and then I realized that I'm in hospital, And there was this lady, nurse, where the nurse lady came and he had a tray of food, and there was a typewriter, the box of typewriter, boxing typewriter. And I remember when I came to, I saw it was written psychiatric ward. That was my rock bottom. That was my rock bottom. I came to and I was a realization of this is the extent that drugs had taken me to a mental institution. And when I looked around, I could see people who I thought were different than me. There was psychiatrists, there were people who were schizophrenic and stuff like that. We were at the same mall, And for the very first time, I was thankful. There was a sense of ease, there was a sense of comfort, And I was grateful to God. I ended up in the place that I was, because of it I could have easily ended up killing myself, I could easily ended up killing other people, because of there was a time where I was on autopilot. I couldn't see my behaviors, If somebody told me that I was insane, like we would fight, but at that certain point, I was thankful that I ended up in a psychiatric ward rather than 7 feet or in rehab or in prison, and I thank God for that experience, and yeah.
Despite all the negative impact of alcohol, the government and many companies benefit from this business. In fact, this factory in Limpopo, Polokwane, produces about 28 million hectoliters of beer a year. A study by Oxford Economics has revealed that beer industry alone contributes about 71 billion to the South African gross domestic product. With every 1 rand in a 79 rand is contributed to the gross domestic product. This creates jobs and also contribute a heavy tax bill, about 43 billion in taxes. And all this has been produced into these factories, end up in townships, in taverns, in liquor stores, and in pubs. The liquor business is so popular that even most of your retail shop ended up opening up the liquor stores next to their popular shops because of the popularity of this product. But is there a danger into this consumption? Do we have any health concern regarding this?
When does alcohol become a problem? I think there are levels here. Level number 1 is if a person goes on a binge, meaning they drink the whole night. It affects their reasoning, a person becomes dehydrated, and the following day they have the effects of last night. This is what we refer to as babalas. Now, when somebody starts using alcohol on a daily basis, or maybe frequently, there is something called tolerance that goes up. So it means if one can tolerate 1 or 2 beers to have the effect, next time it needs about 3 or 4 to have the same effect. As time goes on, they need about 6, 7 beers to get the same effect, same as whiskey and other things. Now it becomes a problem because their tolerance level goes up. But with time, they become dependent on it to function, such that a person needs some degree of alcohol in the body so they can function better. Then as it escalates, they become addicted. So you can see that there are levels here. Level number 1 is just pure binge drinking. And as they drink more and more, the tolerance level for alcohol goes up. So they need more and more to have the same effects. So it's very important to understand these things because all of them started as social drinkers. But the habit of doing it again and again makes them to reach the level where they can actually depend on alcohol to function. Now, this thing called addiction, it happens at the level where a person now starts having problems with whatever is going on in their lives. They mess up their whole family, they mess up their work, they have fines in the streets, and they start having criminal records simply because of alcohol. So a person can actually lose their job because of alcohol. That is when it becomes really dangerous. Now, let us explore a question of what are the effects of alcohol on the body. Alcohol in the first place, it's a chemical. As a chemical, it has to have effects on different systems in the body. System number 1, that I can refer to is the one when a woman is pregnant and they drink alcohol. There's something called fetal alcohol syndrome that the alcohol effects on the baby gets there's effect of alcohol on the baby. So these babies are born with what we call neurological problems. They are small in size and their brains are small and the functioning therefore is disturbed. But when you look at different systems in the body, well, the most important one is the liver. When a person drinks for a very long time, liver metabolizes or processes some components of alcohol. But excessive use of alcohol, what it does to the liver, it damages the cells one by one. So in the long term, it damages the function of the liver. Not only the function of the liver is damaged, also the structure. So in the long term, they actually develop things, a disease called cirrhosis of the liver, where the texture of the liver is affected. How it's affected, it becomes nodular. The liver, instead of being smooth, becomes nodules, and it does not function properly. There are also cancers that are associated with drinking alcohol for a very long time, and people should be aware of that. In terms of chronic illnesses, alcohol does contribute to things like your sugar levels and also blood pressure. In the long term, people who drink a lot develop something called cardiac cardiomyopathy. Cardiomyopathy is the structure of the heart, the muscle of the lung that gets disturbed as a result of long-term use of alcohol. So because of that, they can develop heart problems because of alcohol. So you have these vessels that are affected, you have this heart that is affected, you have blood pressure that is elevated, and also the possibility of getting stroke as a result. The third system that really gets affected is the central nervous system. Central nervous system, we're talking about the brain. People who have prolonged use of excessive alcohol actually have high chance of developing something called dementia. We all know that dementia is very common in our society, but people who are using excessive amount of alcohol do have a higher chance of developing dementia. The other system that is of importance is the digestive system. The digestive system is designed in such a way that it has to be efficient, but excessive use of alcohol actually does affect that system negatively, so that you develop dysfunction of the system and people have digestive problems like constipation and long-term effects of that. So excessive use of alcohol actually is a problem in our communities, because the systems, all the systems that I'm mentioning, are the vital systems that are meant to keep you alive and being vital in your body. But the fact that you are actually damaging those systems, meaning in the long term, you will find yourself really, really struggling with poor health as a result of alcohol. Not only that, it does affect your functioning in the family. It does affect your functioning in the society. It does affect your functioning at work, such that people end up losing their jobs and other things that are not supposed to happen. I hope this can give you an idea of the effects of alcohol. And of course, when you talk about alcohol, people abuse other substances as well, like cigarette and all that. All those things have effects on your systems, such that they function less. But be aware of the cancers as well. Cancers are on the rise, and because of they're on the rise, we'll urge people to really refrain from using alcohol excessively. We don't say people should not use alcohol, but when you use it sparingly, use it in moderation. But long-term use is really a problem. Thank you very much.
There is also a courage that comes with alcohol consumption. The walks in the night without any fear, the careless talks, talking to strangers, and even dangerous driving, reckless driving. But all this is done in the name of fun. As we go into our townships, the question that should be asked is it all worth it? Is this consumption worth the life and the risk that we are taking?